Hello friends, it's Ariella and I'm going to do another segment of my cooking show. All right, so today I'm going to do black bean soup, just like my Nicaraguan mom showed me how. And so we're going to do it in the it's an electric pressure cooker. I have an electric pressure cooker. I know a lot of you have the branded Instapot, and I think they work the same way. So funny story, I actually wanted an old school pressure cooker a few years ago, and I asked my mom for Christmas for one, and she gave me this instead, and I was really cranky about it and didn't use it for months. And then I finally pulled it out and realized how freaking amazing it was and how she knew better after all. So anyways, you can do black beans in a number of ways. You do not need to have an electric pressure cooker to do them. It's just the fastest way. And as you can tell, it's nighttime outside. I haven't started dinner yet. And I'm gonna go from dried black beans to cooked black bean soup, which will, as leftovers, become a side of black bean burritos, and then eventually black bean dip. So that's a whole other thing. So, but to start with the black bean soup. So I'm going to go with 4 cups of black beans. We like to use them for leftovers. They last, they're vegan. So that is really nice because you can make a great dinner for your vegan friends. I like to make 4 cups of them. If you want to make fewer, if there's less of you, then that's fine too. You could cut it in half pretty easily. You'd probably have to reduce the cooking time. So the first thing is you want to rinse your beans. And so we're going to go over here. I'm going to dump them into my little strainer thing. I do pack my beans in quart jars so that I already have the 4 cups all ready to go. And you're going to rinse them. Sometimes you can find little rocks and stuff in the black beans. It's just part of the process for when they are, when they come out of the shelling process. So when that happens, you just pick those little stones or whatever out of there. There's always maybe a couple little sad beans that will float to the top once you put the water on it. You can pick those out and toss them as well. All right, so I'm going to start with the beans in the insert for my pot, and then it's similar to stock in the sense that you can sort of use what you have. I still have this leek because I bought a bunch of leeks a few weeks ago and I don't use them very often. So I'm going to go ahead and start with it because I want to show you how I clean my leeks. So I am going to cut off this bottom section. It's not that it's not usable, it's that I want to keep on using this one leek forever. So I'm going to take this leek end, I'm going to put it into this cup with some water, and it will start to grow roots and tops. I actually planted 2 of these out in the garden this afternoon, so they are going to give me brand new leeks. It's a leek for a leek, but instead of just tossing that, I get to have a whole brand new leek eventually. All right, so with leeks, and these ones I'm going to cut into maybe like 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, and I don't know if you can see on the camera, I now have very fancy cameraman, cute too. I am going to, doesn't matter too much what size they are, but leeks are dirty. Like, look at that. That's super gross. It's not, I mean, like, it's not like bad, but it's dirt, and you don't want to be eating dirt, and you don't want dirt in your soup. And the easiest way to clean them, the yellow leek, I'm not going to use that, is that once you cut them up, you're going to stick them in a bowl of water. Leeks are grown in a very loamy soil. That means it's kind of like a sandy soil. And because of it, they get little amounts of dirt like all through the rings. You can see nothing to be afraid of. It's just dirt, but we want to get rid of it before we cook it. So we're going to put them in this water. And as you can see, all my little leek rings float. So you want to separate them up like this, and then just let them keep floating. If you see dirt, go ahead and grab that one. Here's some dirt. I'm going to rub it a little bit, get it back in the water bath. it's like a dirty kid, right? You just got to put him in its bath and hope for the best. Or like when we go to camp and we just make sure that the kids get in the pool if they're not bathing regularly. Okay, so since you have to shower before and after the pool, it works out. Okay, so now that my leeks are soaking in their bath, I'm actually going to give gravity a chance to get all that loamy soil that's in those leeks and drop it down to the bottom. And in the meantime, I'll start doing the rest of my soup. This will go in the compost. You can keep cutting more of it also. And then whatever you don't cut, just go ahead and put in your compost or your green bin or whatever you have. Now we're still conserving, so I would ordinarily probably throw all these green onions in. I'm an oniony person. I like onions in my soup. I'm gonna rinse these off. Even if you don't, my big advice is to go ahead and leave them whole, which I'm gonna do here. And as you can see, I got these little white bits. I'm gonna put them into a different little glass and grow those as well, which will give me more green onions as the time passes, which is nice. So I'm gonna throw that in the pot whole. I'll pull them out afterwards. Then I've got some cilantro, which is the other half of the bunch I used the other day. And like I said, it was a little sad, but waste not, want not. So I'm just peeling off these little sad bits, and the rest is going into the pot. I'll pull that out at the end too, although it's perfectly edible. My kids, when they, oh, there's another little bit. My kids, when they were little, never wanted to eat those parts, so I would tend to like leave those things whole. They're less picky now, which is nice. All right, so now we got our celery. Now with the black bean soup, you can totally just put in like the leaves of the celery. If you've saved your celery leaves and stuff from making stock, you can throw those in. Now what I like to do with mine, because I really like that flavor, is I dice it up kind of fine. This is compost, or for the worms if they're hungry again. I dice it up kind of fine, and what happens in the Instapot is that, or the electric pressure cooker, because that's TM, right? In the electric pressure cooker, is that it all kind of becomes part of the broth. So we're going to go down, get all those nice leafy bits. They just become part of the soup and is super savory and delicious that way. I'm going to pull these out too. Come on. Now here's the thing about bean soup. I'm talking about making it in the electric pressure cooker, but you can just make it in a pot like my grandma's cooks did. You can also make it in a slow cooker. You don't need to have an electric pressure cooker. All the manners of cooking will produce approximately the same product with the same basic recipe. Do you need to have leeks? No, you don't need to have leeks. You need onion of some kind. You need celery of some kind. Cilantro is helpful, but if you're one of those anti-cilantro people, then don't use it, because then you'll have soapy beans. But it's all a question of time, right? So in a pot, well, I guess the slowest way you can make black beans is in a crock pot. So you have to soak them the night before. You put them in like covered about 3 inches of water, 3-4 inches of water. You let them soak overnight. The next day, you put that into the crock pot with everything we're talking about here, and you let them cook all day, and you'll have black bean soup at the end of the day. If you are, I'm going to start cutting my onion now. If you want to make it in a regular pot, you can, that's sort of the next quickest way to do it. You can absolutely do that. You still need to soak them overnight. Now, you don't need to soak them overnight for the pressure cooker. It's what makes the pressure cooker way of cooking beans super magical, because you don't have to think about it the day before. Like I said, it's nighttime, and I'm just starting dinner right now. Part of that was that we couldn't find the electric pressure cooker, but, you know, construction, it's fun, good times. So if you're putting them in a pot, you soak them overnight, you put them in the pot, cover them with plenty of water, and then the thing is that you really do need to watch that pot, stir it, do all of that. I am dicing this onion because I want it to sort of fall apart and become part of my broth. I do not care for like big hunks of soft onion. I don't mind little bits of the soft onion though. So I cut it up so that it just becomes part of that broth. And so yeah, so you can do it in a pot, you can do it in a slow cooker, or you can do it super fast in the instant electric pressure cooker. I got to get out of that habit. All right, so now I'm putting the diced onion in. I thought about putting in 2, but I think 1 is going to be enough, especially because I'm adding in leeks, which I don't normally do. I wanted to have my celery in the bag so that you could see that I'm using my reused bread bag for it. It didn't actually have bread in it. It had a bag of bread in it, which is so wasteful, but as long as we're reusing and reusing, it's pretty helpful. So I'm going to put the rest of that celery in there. I'm going to put the rest of my green onions in there, and those will get put back in the fridge for another day. All right, the next part of my recipe is, and oh, here's a word about the recipe. My brother was saying that I really needed to put like captions with all of the recipe directions, and I very well may get fancy enough to do that at some point in my life. But my point in doing these is to show that you kind of don't need a recipe. It's a process. It's just a way of doing something, and you can't really mess up. My mom was not taught to cook when she was growing up. And when she was in Japan, after first meeting my dad, my biological father, she wanted to make beans. And so she was trying to make this pot of beans, and she boiled them for 9 hours, and they didn't get soft. She kept boiling and boiling and boiling, and the more she boiled, the harder they got. And she finally called. Now, this is like a long time ago. She called long distance phone call from Japan to Nicaragua to ask her mom what was going on with these beans. Turns out she had put salt in the beans early, and that will ruin your beans. But that's kind of the only thing you can do to ruin your beans. Any of these methods, you put in what you like, and then you'll end up with a good pot of beans, and then you put the salt in at the end. We do not put salt beforehand, because you'll end up like my mom in Japan with a pot of rocks. All right, so this next thing is optional depending upon how much heat you like. I like to add a chipotle. In the times that I don't have a chipotle, I'll add just like red chili flakes, just to add a little bit of heat. Chipotles are like roasted jalapeno peppers that are in an adobo sauce. You can buy them in the Latin section of your grocery store. They come in a can. They do not come in this jar. But I only ever need 1 chipotle at a time. They come multiples in a can. So what I do is I buy the can, and then I use my first chipotle, and then I put the rest of them into a mason jar or an old pickle jar or whatever, and put them in the fridge, and then they'll last. So I don't have to buy a jar every single time I make it. You can totally just save that and use it. You can make sauces, aioli, whatever you want to do with it if you're not going to make black bean soup very often. So 1 chipotle. Alternatively, you can absolutely add chili pepper flakes, or leave out the heat if you'd prefer not to have it. I'm going to put in some olive oil. I am sure in Nicaragua they do not use olive oil. However, there is some kind of oil that's added, and in terms of how much, I mean, you could add a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons. It's not, just like a little bit of oil. It's not that complicated that you need to have it be like a specific amount. You can play a little bit with it. All right. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the cooking. Don't be afraid of the Instant Pot. Okay. So now if you've noticed, the water's gotten super cloudy and there's dirt on the bottom. That is the dirt that has fallen off of the leeks. So now I'm going to take these leeks that are on the top that are nice and clean, and we're going to be cooking all of them in water so they don't have to be dry. because they're just going to get water poured on top. We just wanted them clean. All right, so my leeks are done. They're in there. And now I'm going to add in my water. So like I said, with the oil, you do not need to use olive oil. You could use any kind of vegetable oil. I am sure you could use lard. You could use anything like that if you wanted to make it not vegan. But if you want to keep it vegan, which is how I always do it, that's what we do. So now I need to find the little, there it is. So you'll see on the side, you should have a maximum. Since I am making it into soup, I want it to go to the maximum amount of liquid because I do want to have all of that liquid for those 4 cups of beans. If you were doing half, you could probably do half the liquid, or you could have more liquid. It's not going to hurt it. All right, so people can be afraid sometimes of the electric pressure cooker because it's a little disconcerting. But on the upside, these new ones are made with safety precautions. So it's not going to be like the old school pressure cookers that could literally explode and make a giant mess all over your kitchen. Google pressure cooker explosions for a good time. That's what I do. All right, so beans in the pot. And now you put the pot on. Where is it? This way. There's a little thing on the side. You get your top on there. It goes from unlock. You switch it over to lock. You make sure that the pressure gauge is on pressure, not on pressure release, because you want it to, there's like a little thing on the knob. Now, if you notice, I have a very exciting broken button. So my broken button is taped on. It still works perfectly fine. All right, so I'm going to do high pressure. Switch it to high, and your machine might work differently than mine. And then I'm going to do time. And for my 4 cups of beans, that makes a nice big sized pot of soup, I'm going to go with 36 minutes. That's what I have found works for my machine, and then hit start. And that's it. So now it takes a little longer than 36 minutes because the water's got to heat up, and then it takes the 36 minutes, and then the pressure has to be released. Which is all you do is move that little knob on the top from pressure to release pressure, and it will release it once it's done. And then you can open it up, and I will come back after it's done to show you what it looks like. And we'll edit today. We'll have editing. It's very exciting. All right. Okay. So I'll see you in a little bit. Bye. Okay. So we're back now, and it has counted down to 0, 0. So it's time to release the pressure. Releasing the pressure always freaks me out. So I like to use a wooden spoon to do it. So you just turn the little knobby thing. Whoop, there we go. And it is releasing that steam and the pressure. It's going to take a minute. Once it's done making this sound, it will be able for you to unlock. You can't unlock it before that. And then we'll unlock it and we'll look inside. And that's when you add the salt, okay? So that's when you're going to be adding all of that, the rest of the seasoning. Not before. You don't want little pebbles. Okay. Taking a while. Very exciting. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. The way that we eat this soup in Nicaragua, at least the first night when there's still a lot of broth, is we'll actually boil a single serving in a pot and crack a raw egg into it until the egg becomes kind of poached in the soup. And then we eat it with the egg. You can also add some chopped up avocado. You can add some fresh cilantro, some queso fresco, anything like that into the soup. Granted, the cheese and the egg make it not vegan, but it is delicious with or without. Tomorrow when there's less broth, we'll eat it as just beans. And we just kind of keep eating it until it's all gone. Last step, like I said, is bean dip. And all we do for bean dip is sort of mash it up and mix it with some cream cheese on the stove until it gets warm and smooth and bubbly. And then eat it with chips. Super tasty. All right. So steam's almost gone now. Yeah. Wooden spoon. Do I edit again? Do I just keep going? Could like sing and dance. Okay, so the steam is stopped and we're going to go ahead and unlock it. So you just turn it till it goes to the unlock function. Open it up. And you've got your wooden spoon from turning the thing. You've got this yummy bean soup. Oh, one more thing I almost forgot to tell you. I forgot garlic when I put it all in the first place. So I actually stopped it after the video went. And I put a spoonful of my garlic in the fridge. You can also just put whole cloves of garlic that you can put in at the beginning. I'd say at least 4 or 5. I did like a nice spoonful. But we've got this yummy bean soup. Here we go. Super delicious. So you just want to salt it until it tastes salty enough. At least I'd say a tablespoon or 2. Here's that chipotle. We don't eat it, so, I mean, you can if you want, but we don't, so we're going to throw that away. And there it is. All right, I hope you try making my black beans. Enjoy.